Hello, everyone. Thank you, Naznin and Shail, for coming to this episode of GradLab, this August episode. And I think we have a really interesting discussion ahead of us on interpersonal relationships. It's definitely a topic that concerns a lot of graduate students and on how to manage the personal aspect and communications with either our advisor or our lab, as well as other collaborators and other professors in our uh, universities and research centers that we're doing our PhD at, and would love to hear your feedback on this discussion. So how about we spend some time introducing our speakers? So Nazneen, would you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Uh, Hello, thank you IEEE-HKN for inviting me, and especially Panagis for inviting me for this episode. I'm Naznin Akter. I have recently done my PhD from Florida International University. Right now I'm working with Micron. I'm right now in Boise actually. So yeah, during my whole PhD session, there's lots of things like we can like that will become into the discussion. Lots of things is common that we have faced during our PhD life. So I guess that will be helpful for the PhD student who are right now doing their studies and doing the graduation part. That's all for my part.
Awesome. Yeah, and we also have Shail with us. So do you mind introducing yourself as well?
Yeah, so I'm Shail from Arizona State University, and yeah, I work on computing systems, and I'm final year PhD candidate, and I usually involve in a lot of voluntary activities and mentoring activities, and I'm also serving as a mentor with Computer Architecture Student Association, and yeah, I really love interacting with students, and I think yeah, I'm just enjoying my last year of grad life.
Lovely. Yeah, that's great. Thank you a lot for being here. I will also briefly introduce myself. I'm a senior PhD student, fifth year at Boston University in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. I've been involved in HKN throughout my entire graduate studies as well as part of the undergraduate studies. So quite a while. It's been must have been 70 years by now, and my research is on photonics and microscopy. And I think this topic of interpersonal relationships is something we all resonate with. And on that note, uh, we will start with our first aspect, which I'm really curious to hear your perspectives on how it is, how are the connections between group members in your labs and your separate research homes, and specifically, when you join as a first year or when you're, new to a lab environment and you interact with senior, like postdocs even, senior members of the labs are also not PIs. How is the interaction different? Do you feel it's different between uh, yeah, new people and seniors? And if it's different, how? And do you have any feedback how to navigate that and any personal experience on that? So yeah, Nazneen, how about we hear your feedback on that and your thoughts?
Okay. The thing is yeah, it's definitely different because during your first year you're like kind of new. You don't know most of the instrument in your lab, how to run them, so you have to get you have to have some mentor. Maybe it can be your PhD supervisor, or maybe someone from some senior PhD student. They can help you, guide you to understand the whole lab culture. Then after getting involved with those things, learning those things, you become the senior person. Then new member comes to the lab, then it becomes your responsibility to groom them, to help them to like whatever thing you felt during your first year, that if someone helped you in this way, you could have learned this thing better. So you have some findings, right, that you had missed during your learning period, so you can help those things towards others. You can help the new student learn, make them learn those things. So yeah, and that's how you become senior. And during the last part of your graduation term, the whole perception is like getting kind of different, because you are kind of in the rush to complete all of your project. It's never be like, the thing is like PhD is such a journey, you can never finish anything. So
So
you
true.
have to draw a line, like this is what I have done. I know there's so many other things can be done, but I have to draw a line. That's the end line for me. this is what I have done. Now I have to move either academia or industry, and based on that I have to groom myself, prepare myself for the interview so that I can land into my dream job, either academia or industry. So that's another phase, and that phase, I guess, it's the most stressing phase, because you don't know where you are going to land. And also the thing is, like, while you are giving interview for different companies, like, you're not going to get positive feedback from everyone. Someone will give you like answers that you are like you've never expected, or sometimes you give a very good interview but you get a very like bad responses, like, so it's like kind of like the whole thing is kind of different.
Yeah.
So yeah, each and every phase during this whole PhD life will give you a like kind of roller coaster uh, feelings. Like, you will learn a lot of things. You will like during the last, not last, middle period, like most of the time we are feeling like, oh, why, like we are waiting for when this PhD journey is going to end. We are kind of waiting for that time, but while it's coming near to end, we're like, no, I don't want to end this. I want to continue this. And when you start the job, you feel like, no, I love my PhD life. It's like, yeah, it's always yeah,
agree.
you have like different phase. So that's what I think. Yeah.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. Yes. I think it's like you feel and you become, I like the idea of the cycle that you become, you have a relationship with your senior student, and sometimes it can feel, oh, am I hogging their time when they're training me? Do they want to do this? Is it a burden for them? But then you go to, as a senior, and then you are play that role. So it's like a cycle that you become a senior afterwards. So I really like that perspective. It can be really helpful. Before we move on that topic, Shail, I'm curious on seniority. Have you ever felt that? Do you feel that? Yeah, your feedback a little bit on that.
Absolutely. I think Naznin really put, I think, summarize whole PhD journey very well. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, this really happens. So, I mean, when you are starting, like you have a lot of questions, but then you resonate really well with, I think, other students who are starting, because then they are taking courses and all that. But when you really talk to seniors, right, you
Yeah.
realize like, about professional opportunities and how do I keep getting to master the things, right? And if there are two senior people interacting, then they usually talk more about, like managing daily and weekly tasks, because things start to make more sense, and then all those challenges. But so yeah, I think the communication could differ, and it could be, I mean, you may feel intimidating, but in general I would say, like, if it's always better to go and ask for help and just talk to people. Usually senior students are more welcoming and open to regular conversation, even if they are towards transitioning next role, but we are all peers, right? So I think, yeah, I think, and it's not just about technical stuff, but also about discussing life, that what opportunities I should seek for, or maintaining work-life balance and all that. So yeah, I think feel free to go and talk to them, and you realize the journey.
Right. Yeah, I think it's not it's not about the technical stuff, and that gives me actually room to move on to a question in terms of like, do you feel you're friends with like lab mates, and I mean maybe like with senior people, but also do you feel you can maintain a more like social aspect in the group, which I think it's very important to personally to have a culture in a lab. But have you seen that in your personal experience, and do you think it's easy? Shail, you want to? Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah,
So you want
I
to go?
think.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I think, yeah, it depends. Okay, I think this is usually the environment is quite friendly, and you want to make more friends as soon as, as long as you could, right? But
Yeah.
it also depends on in general personality. So not to worry much if you are introvert or if
Yeah.
you are like starting somewhere, but
Right.
it's kind of otherwise equal, because these are your peers you see and work almost every day, and you see every day. And in my case, even it's really easy for me to go to the lab, because I have like several friends. Not necessarily all are close, but at least those are the ones whom I can meet and greet almost every day, talk to them every day, at least, even not for a long time, let's say even for a few minutes, right? And then you can of course have long discussion about your work and life and all that, and that does happen, and that gives you the break to all the time that you put on the same floor, right? So I think, and those are the people who would be cheering up when you go to defense and all your exams, and as you are moving forward. So yeah, I think it's really important if you could have some good friends.
Definitely. Yeah, I would agree on that. Naznin, how about you? Do you
My perspective is a little bit different, I would say. Like, I feel like I saw my lab mates, my university, these classmates more often than my husband, than my family. So it becomes like, instead of thinking
Sure.
that my lab or my university is my second home, I
Yeah.
most of the time I feel like it's my first home. The second home is there. I just go there and sleep, or maybe sometimes
Oh.
eat or do some cleaning or cooking. That's it. But
Yes.
my most of my time is like, I'm investing in my lab, investing with my lab mates. We are discussing, maybe like during coffee hour we are like having some chit chat. During the chit chat we are solving several problems which hardly, like, if you don't have a friendly relationship with your group members, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
The more you have to, it's like two-way street, I would say. It's not like you are friendly but the other person is not friendly. That time it's really difficult to establish the friendship. So the
Exactly.
thing is like, yeah, both of them, like you and also your lab mates has to be like be open, need to start communication. Like, we are all here like doing like collaborative work. Research is a collaborative work. The more we will collaborate, the more idea we'll generate, the more publication we can do.
Yeah.
So talk to people, either your lab mates or maybe some other lab mates, like not related to your lab, but maybe that research really interests you. You can talk with them, help them on their research as well, to publish a collaborative paper. So talk with everyone around you near your lab. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, I
having a
think that,
friendly
yeah,
relationship is a must.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think we all get caught up to, um, like we need to focus on our research, and I don't. It's a lot. You can feel very lonely sometimes to just like do your own thing, but it's easy to forget how by collaboration, talking with people, you actually learn more.
One thing I want to add, like one day I was like talking with one of my friend, her research
Mhm.
concentration was in like biosensing kind of stuff. Mine is like optics and nanofabrication.
Yeah.
So the thing is like, I was facing a like problem which I couldn't find any solution.
Yeah.
But the solution was there, but I was struggling to find the solution. So
Yeah.
I was like casually talking with her during the coffee hour and explaining what problem I'm facing. And
Yeah.
she doesn't know about optics stuff that much, but
Yes.
she actually somehow give me an idea. Like,
Yeah.
you haven't tried this path. Maybe I'm not I'm not the expert, but I'm just saying, like, did you
Yeah.
try this one? I'm like, okay, I never thought like that. Okay, I should try that way. So
Yeah.
somehow, like, a non-relative person can also help you to like generate an idea. So it's always really talk like with all the people, no matter they're with your same research area or not. Just talk to them. You can always get some idea, and the same thing also can happen, that you can also give some idea to other people. So just talk.
Exactly. Yeah. And actually, just before we move on, I want to share that I had a very similar situation with a really good friend of mine I met through HKN actually, Joe Green, and we were talking over coffee about something I was struggling about my research, and he gave me a really good perspective, and I was like, wait, I didn't think about doing this sort of analysis, so it would prove to be something I'm using. So I think, yeah, that we have. It's funny how I'm sure we're not the only ones who have such similar stories of when you're not talking, you're stuck, and the moment you talk to someone, a new idea comes up. That's beautiful. That's really great to hear. Um, Now, and I know this is a more different sphere, but also with respect to communication, and it has to do with our principal investigators, our PIs, our professors, and I think that's a whole sphere of a whole different world of how to communicate. It's different. It's has its different challenges, and on that end, I know there are many different types of PIs, many different types. Naznin, how do you feel doing the meetings with your PI? First of all, do you have individual meetings? Is it just you and them? And do you feel that your opinions matter? Do you feel that you're collaborating with your PI? Or is it more like, okay, this is what you're going to do, task, 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 task. You better do it by this deadline and just keep doing what I'm telling you? Or do you feel your opinions are heard, let's say. I'm really curious to hear how it is in your case.
It's a complicated relationship with the PI.
As it is.
So you can never be like 100% satisfied with how you deal with your PI. It's not like always you like he is wrong. Sometimes I may be wrong during the conversation, but the thing is like if you like asking my personal experience with my PI, it was like kind of we have like both one-on-one meeting and also the group meeting. But just because of like some problems later on that we had to continue with one-on-one meeting. But I personally feel that group meeting is very important because I should know what my other group members are, what they're doing. Maybe I can give some inputs to their research. The same thing can happen, like they can give some input to my research. We can do more collaborative kind of project. So I personally feel like everyone should follow this kind of thing, that always have a like group meeting, not individual one-on-one meeting. You can always have one-on-one meeting if you have some issues that you don't want to discuss in front of other lab mates. You want to personally talk with your PI, that's okay. But when it comes to like presenting your research, giving update on your research, it's better to performing the at least to the lab group that falls under the same umbrella. So just that's the way of communication I really like appreciate. But somehow we had like both of these. And regarding the like while handling your PI, sometimes it happens that you are giving some idea but he doesn't like that idea. So it will be like, no, you're giving this task, you do this task. So it happens. But at the same time, it also happens that he actually appreciates the idea. So it's kind of like it's mixing kind of thing. It's like it's never getting like easier. Sometimes he's agreeing whatever your idea you are giving, he likes your idea. He's like kind of, he's the one who is like trying to protect you from everyone, giving priority to your idea. Sometimes he's the one actually who blocks your idea. So it's kind of complicated kind of thing. So you have to understand like how you can deal with your advisor. If you understand his nature, his personality, try to understand that, and based on that you can actually communicate with him properly. So if you think that today is not a good day to like talk on some important issue, just let it wait. Whenever he's in a good mood, just try to explain your idea, try to like show your like the reason of your idea. If you present your idea in such a way that he doesn't like he don't get any like kind of like excuse to like block your idea, then he will definitely agree with you. But if he finds any gap in your idea, definitely he's going like, even I will not agree on that part if I find a gap in someone's idea or someone's conversation. So why should your PI go with you? So it's not always PI's fault. Sometimes it's our fault as well. We can't like, we have the idea, but the presentation that we are giving regarding our idea, that's not always like perfect. It needs to be at least.
Yes, and I think that's really valuable because that's a skill that we need to like have. So it can be hard, and I've been there. I think, we need to be able, for like, if you go to academia, you need to convince funding agencies. If you go to industry, you need to convince other people. It's a skill to be able to have an idea to convince, because sometimes I feel our PIs will ask us questions and challenge it, and they don't have the answer. They don't have a better idea. They won't have a better idea. They'll just challenge the only idea that exists, which is yours, but they will challenge you. And it's a skill to be able to like present it in the best way to have your PI to not be able to say anything. So even though that I like the idea that that's challenging and it can be very hard in the beginning, but you learn the skill of like presenting in a way that no one can say anything about it, and then it will happen. You'll see that. So I mean that can create conflict, right? And I think Shail, how do you handle conflict, and how do you think what's the best mechanism to avoid it, and if it happens, to heal and sort of like fracture them and occur?
Yeah, I get it. So yeah, I mean, I think actually my experience is in fact kind of bit different. So we are like in fact colleagues. So we
Okay.
really fit as colleagues. So yeah, I mean, I never really felt like, you know, I'm like reporting to someone in hierarchy, but it's more like, yeah, I mean, yeah, of course that is there, but you know, usually like it is, you know, as even our previous discussion summarize, right? Like either
Right.
if you have a better idea or better understanding or insights, you convince me and point out to, you know, all the challenges in approach I'm suggesting, or provide better insights, or either I convince you to the point that, hey, look, this part makes sense as it is. So usually like I think that discussion goes on, and even if I think if there are okay, so I think this is the model like usually happens with me. So usually I don't really run into conflicts, especially for technical stuff. Yeah, maybe for priorities, you know, like I mean, yeah, we always have some priorities, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like we have our own priorities for research, and maybe like there are some service related stuff or other stuff you are doing, and maybe you are helping your PI, you know, for organizing something, or you know, uh, in service for something. So in that case, maybe priorities could differ, but then again, like I think communication is the best option, even ever if you feel like if there is a conflict. So yeah, this really doesn't happen that much with me, but I think
Right.
I feel like communication is, you know, the best way. You put forth, be frank, and you put forth all the options, and maybe it's also good to, you know, talk with your lab mates and see. I think in some cases this happens, I think not in my group, but I've seen, I think, other students facing challenges. So usually the best model is that you talk with, you know, senior members of your lab or other groups, and you see really whom you feel comfortable with, and you see like how is this common thing, how does the things go, and like how should you be moving forward. And I think this is quite common, and if you seek support, people can give you better information.
Definitely, yeah. I think getting that feedback from other people is really helpful. And on that note, have you noticed, do you think it depends, is a PI thing? Or like within the group, sometimes you can see different dynamics between a PI and more senior people, or more like people that they like have personal preferences. And like, is it more like find the right PI, especially for new people? Um, is it a character of the PI, or is it more luck and more seniority? Because sometimes when you're more senior, they trust you more on that. And so is it something that you want to wait, be patient until you become more senior, or early on find a PI that will work for you? What do you think matters more in that case? Shail, yeah, do you have any, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I think this is also a great question. So I think
Yeah.
I think the discussion, you know, I think the comfort in general when you are interacting with PI, and I think less probabilities of conflicts. I think they come more as I mean that is very likely when you become senior. So you know, because I think you are really you know. Putting things in way that it makes even more and more sense, and I think
Mm,
you are really likely to be heard, you know, I think with more importance in general, and it's just natural. And I think it's not really like your PI doesn't want to give you importance, but I think it really just happens with time because you have better feedback or input to put in. And I think on your question about like maybe how do you navigate like whether the PI, you know, whether you are working with the right PI in the beginning. So in, I mean, I think I would say like, yeah, I mean, if this both kind of mechanisms happen, like people usually try to find right PI at the beginning, or just circumstances does that way. Like in my case, I was already doing master's thesis with my PI. Just I was trying like after doing an internship, and I was that dragged me into the PhD research. That hey, you know, I should be continuing with this PI, and you know, I was really lucky to be in the right spot. But I think in other cases, I mean, I've seen like, you know, even in my group, people joining from other groups, and you know, this is kind of common. So like if you really feel like, oh, you are not well comfortable, or you know, your working approach doesn't manage, because you know, some PIs micromanage too much. Some
yeah,
PIs give a lot of freedom. In my case, actually, my PI really wants student to grow. So actually, we are happy. Just
exactly.
like maybe sometimes I need to figure out, oh, how do I micromanage myself? So,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
it really depends. Yeah.
I can,
And I
yeah.
think just feel free to, you know, go with what is most comfortable, and you can do a successful PhD.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it also comes down to your own personal preferences. Do you want to have someone on you all the time, or do you want someone more distant to give that freedom to have? And everything depends on like your own style. So I think it's important to find that. Yeah, and before we move on the conflict advice, Naznin, do you have anything to add on that, or?
I do agree most of like whatever Shail is saying, but
Yeah,
I want to add one perspective of mine, and that is like,
please.
first of all, there is no like perfect PI. Like every PI has, like you will find like some PI has some good thing and some PI has some bad thing, but it's like kind of mixtures of everything. So you
Right.
can never have a perfect PI. So the thing is like it's always better at the initially, like if you somehow you at the very first time you understand that somehow you don't understand your PI much better, and the way like while you join you figure out that this is the right lab, right PI for you. But after joining to the lab and working with your peer, you find out that no, it's not the right place for me, and I cannot handle this kind of communication or this kind of thing. So you have to put a stop and try to find a PI that actually like goes with your like resonates with you. So I saw many of my friends and colleagues, they have done this thing like whenever they had some problem, they immediately try to like switch, which is good because if you're like PhD is a long time commitment. So
Yeah.
if your PI like you are like somehow convincing yourself, just hanging there, you have to just face it, but it's
Right.
not like that. You
Right.
cannot continue your whole PhD journey just like that. So you have to understand your pain point, and you have to understand that if you're not going to have a good communication, good relationship with your PI, then immediately put a stop and go somewhere else, try to find the right not exactly right, but try to find at least near right person to work with.
Exactly.
So yeah, immediately do that before it's too late, because I also saw some of my colleague and friends, like they suffer during their whole PhD life. They kind of like at the last moment of their PhD, they're like, why I did the PhD at all? Like this kind of frustration was in
Yeah.
their mind, and it was like kind of a burden instead of having a passion to do research. So whenever you understand that there is some communication gap, immediately put a stop. That's my suggestion.
Yes, and I could not agree more that it's you're never going to find the right PI. So going around at the other hand, going around finding the right PI, you want to settle at some point. And I think for me, it's a combination of a balance of you liking the research, that's really important. You liking the topic, because working on a topic they don't like just because the PI, and from the other hand, just because the PI is like amazing, that also will not work. So you wanna, but definitely prioritize yourself and like have a working healthy relationship. I think is very important. If you need to leave and explore. People do that all the time.
Yeah,
It's very
don't stress yourself.
Absolutely.
And because I saw like some of my friends, they're like having through mental health issues after like
yeah.
having like a discussion with their PI, environment and everything. Although like they love their research, they love their work, but due to this environment they're facing, like every day they have like lots of like different stress, and those stresses make
Yeah.
us like mentally not capable, which
Healthy.
in turn is making them not capable of doing research, productive research. So it's like actually you are putting yourself in a like in a bad situation. So whenever you understand, just quit on
Yeah.
that situation. Going to try to find like, make yourself the first priority. Try to find someone with whom you are going to resonate yourself, and the work you like, the environment, everything matters because it's a long-term commitment.
Exactly. I could not agree more. This is I think, a very important message. So that's amazing. So let's, on that note, let's move on to our last section of this episode, which is talking about interpersonal connections with other collaborators and other professors. I feel a lot of us have a some level of comfort between our own PI, especially as we grow throughout the years. But sometimes when you talk with other collaborators or other professors, that can be, I feel, more intimidating. So I do wonder, Shail, do you agree on that? Do you agree that they can be intimidating? Do you feel like, will they value my opinion? And what's the best way to get to know a new group or a professor, especially when the professor can be a big name, let's say, in the field? I feel sometimes that can be very scary. So I don't know, how do you feel about that?
I think this is a really great question and very, I think, helpful for your research. So in general, I would say, like, first of all, I think you should be open to talking to people if you are really interested in getting more collaborators. And that is actually important to get some feedback, right? As a second perspective, right? So I think in my case, these collaborations have happened in variety of ways. For example, one time I was just talking with, potential internship for one of the research lab manager, and then it turned out, okay, oh, I don't want to do it, but then he was suggesting, oh, we are open to collaboration, right? And then he really pointed me out to one of the senior research scientists in his group, and then it lasted, I think, for almost 2 years, and it was a very great collaboration I benefited from. And in another case, like, I went to a conference and I was talking to one of the professor. And please note, I mean, they don't have to be really super senior. If you feel like, oh, this is even young PI, but he is really doing the work that you are interested in, and he has that passion, energy, and his group really has that, some of the objectives that you feel it aligns well, just please, if you talk with them, most of the time it could be that people could be interested in, the ideas or the perspective that you can offer, and then it just starts from the top. So in my case, like, it all just started from like surveying on the field, right? And then I did a survey, and then I really invited different other collaborators to give me perspective or add upon the chapters. And then actually I did quite a comprehensive survey a few years back, and then that's how this professor was able to help me. And then now actually it went out so well that he's now even my committee member, right? So I think it could be, but okay, I think on the question of intimidating, right? I mean, this collaborations, if you are, I mean, you don't have really bandwidth to run many collaborations, right? And even if you run like one, or maybe you are also collaborating maybe somewhere and helping somebody. So in general, like, it is important to keep in mind that, if there are collaborations, people want to see, maybe they would likely flourish if there are complementary skills and if there are efforts going on, right? So usually, like, they, like, your collaborators, especially if they are senior, they may ask you to do some task, right? Just like your PI. But then you may find that important, not important. So you need to really just make sure to either make progress or just communicate. Like, how would you eventually communicate to PI that, hey, this idea looks right, but maybe I'm overwhelmed, and first I want to address this challenge, and maybe let's see what results we get there, right? So all I'm just saying is, I mean, if you are having collaborators, they are also putting their time, so make sure you are making progress, but you need to make sure that you are convincing them, and if you are not feeling in the right direction, then do a better collective approach, right? So this is it.
Exactly. No, that makes sense. I think sometimes it's hard to know your bandwidth. It's hard to know how long time how long things certain tasks take. I've also had a collaboration where the professor was had more expectations that than it was a collaboration, so it was eventually a side project. So he was kind of like, where I thought this would be fast. Like, what's taking you so long? And I was like, not my project. It's kind of a side project. So in my PI sometimes did not communicate that well. Sometimes it's on you to communicate that. I do feel that we need to have that understanding that just because they're professors, just because they're more senior in the field, it doesn't mean that they have necessarily the same authority that our own PI has even on us and on our time. And I think we need to communicate that. But we want to benefit. I think they will benefit from us, and we will benefit as well from them. I think collaborations are very important. And on that note, Naznin, do you feel that you also benefit from collaborations, and and also apart from collaborations generally with professors, do you feel that in conferences or any sort of talks, do you feel, how does networking work with professors? Do you feel confident talking to professors that you don't collaborate with, or they don't know you and they've never heard of you, but they want you to know them? no, you want them to know you rather. So how do you approach that? And on that note, maybe you can talk to us about committee members and professors that you're not collaborating with. How do you approach that relationship?
Okay, regarding the collaboration in research world, you have to do the collaboration. That's the first rule. And
Yeah.
doing the collaboration, you have to have meet with so many people. And the thing is like, yeah, it seems maybe a little bit intimidating or daunting to talk with someone and present your idea, but you can take always some steps which actually will help you. First of all, find out your research community that actually interests you. Go to the conferences, talk to the similar interested kind of research professors, and during the conference you can talk with them, make a friendly gesture. They are also people, they are also friendly. You can just go and talk. And what I have seen recently in most of the conferences, even IEEE-HKN through, we are also trying to do this mentor-mentee kind of thing. So the thing is like the IEEE photonics conferences that I have attended mostly because my research is based on photonics. So they have this mentor-mentee program. So during every conference, before starting a conference, they will ask you, what do you want to be, a mentor or mentee? So what is your research aspect? So based on it, they are like assigning you with a professor. So you can join to the program. This is actually a beneficial program, I'll say, because it's really hard to find a professor and talk with them. You can in that conference, he's your mentor. So whatever questions you have, you can directly communicate with him. You can present your idea, and through this good communication channel, because the IEEE Photonic Society is doing this thing, so they have like confidentiality and all that kind of thing, so that you don't just get lost, or they have these facilities. Like if you are facing some problem, if you're not getting enough help, they will arrange the help for you. So try to find out. I'm just focusing my research community, but the same thing goes for other research community as well. They're also doing the same kind of program. Try to get involved, try to know each one better. I would say do volunteer work as well. The more you do volunteer work, the more people you will know, the more you have the networking, the more the people will have a grow trust on you. If they have the trust in you, they will understand your, at least they will listen your idea.
Yes.
First you need to tell your idea to someone, right? So first you need to make someone to listen. So they'll listen your idea. So while you're presenting your idea, make sure there is no gap. You have to present in a solidified way that even if they try to challenge your idea, they throw so many questions on your idea, you are well prepared to answer those things. That means they will find, even though you may not have the 100% solution right ahead, you just have an idea. Yes. But you have the preparation to actually make the idea into practical life. So they want that thing, and you have the passion to work with. So if the professor or the researcher you are collaborating with, if they find out those passion skill set you have, they will actually guide you through, because it's not always like they're expert, they're also learning. It's a learning phase for everyone. Everyone is learning, growing, because our world is changing every time. Research is coming, so many new thing is coming, so everyone is learning. So through you, maybe that person can learn as well. Although he has maybe 25 years of research experience, still he can learn from you. There's you are learning from him as well, but it's both were learning is going. So do those things. And regarding selecting the committee member, it's always better. It's actually based on the university setup as well. Talk to our PI. Which research arena are you in? So if I'm talking about my university, Florida International University, so there's some certain rule that how many member can be your own department, and you have to have some different department advisor as well for your committee member. So know the rules of your university, then talk to your PI, find out the professor that you want to keep in your as your committee member. So if somehow you find a member professor who you wants to keep in the committee member, but maybe your PI doesn't want, then try to find a like a ground is common ground so that you can actually be aligned with him, or maybe he can be aligned with you. So try to like make a like mutual kind of understanding. So that will actually help you to find out the committee members. So it's university dependent and PI related kind of thing.
Definitely. Yeah. No, yeah, right. That's definitely it will depend on the university. I found personally committees, sometimes they can they can be like more flexible and like not care about, but sometimes they can be
Yeah, it's
even harder than
that's
your
what I'm saying.
advisor.
It's really dependent on the university or maybe the research you are doing. Some committee member is actually giving you so many inputs and try to know the output from you as well. And
Right.
some committee members is like they doesn't even care.
Exactly.
Like after like 1 year later, there will be like an annual evaluation kind of thing. During that time, maybe you have a like little bit conversation. You will let them know what
Right.
research is going on, something like that. That's it. They're
Right.
happy with you because somehow they know what you're doing. They just give you the freedom to work independently kind of thing. So it's actually dependent of the university, the research you are doing.
Exactly. And sometimes, do you recommend, sometimes I know some people like, because you have committee members that will be very challenging, but so is that something that you recommend? Like just you, because the more challenge you get in your research, the more strong it becomes potentially, the more valid. But you also, I mean, I've had potentially some experience with committee where there's a lot of doubt of the results, but without backing. So it's more because there's constructive and there's just criticism, right? There's constructive criticism and then it's just criticism for the sake of criticism. So I know we can all, I'm sure we can all think of like specific professors that are known to be very challenging. So would you recommend having a more balanced committee, an easy committee, or really just get the more focused on try to get people that have the highest expertise in what you're doing? So which path, what would you recommend among that?
A balanced committee.
A
I would
balanced
say.
committee?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's always better to have a balanced committee because they will actually give you challenge through constructive criticism. So you will have the like scope to work on your research to like fill up your gaps if there is a gap in your research.
Yeah.
It's maybe sounds fancy to have it's like a high demandable kind of like committee member, but it has a downfall as well, because if they're like giving you like constant criticism, sometimes maybe it's a constructive, sometimes it's not constructive. So that time it's really difficult to meet their high expectation all the time, because research doesn't go as we expect always. So it's better to have a balanced committee always. So I would suggest go for the balanced committee.
That's a really good feedback. Appreciate it. Shail, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think just a quick thing. I think this is very right. Just that I think, when we are looking for committee members, right, for sure we have department, requirements from department or school.
Yes.
But in general, like maybe try to balance it in a way that you can get people from different kind of related domains, right? So that you can, and I'll give you an example. So I work on like systems for machine learning, for example, right? And hardware software co-design. So I have like committee member from say computer architecture, compiler, and then like more hardware or circuit side. And then if it is for machine learning, then person who is really expert in machine learning but also knows this domain a bit, right? So I think that really kind of formulates, I think it gives me different perspective, because when you are presenting your approach, then it may have different trade-off across different domain or related topics. So I mean, in general, it could give you, a good feedback, especially early on. But yeah, it's important to, kind of have it in a bandwidth that you can manage. That is for sure, right? I mean, because maybe universities allow like 4 people, 5 people. Sometimes I've seen committees with even 6 people, but then that is too much to then eventually handle, right? Because there are so many experts in the world. You don't want to have whole world giving you feedback at the same time, right? Because everybody will come up with very nice and unique perspective, but then you need to really then consider it. And yeah, I think if they have actually some industry experience, or if they are even one of them are from industry, then that is also, I think, a good thing if they fit in your, criteria. And actually, if you are good collaborators, then I've often seen like at least one of the collaborator also usually could serve as a committee member, and then that is also good for you because they are already closely working with you, and then that also creates kind of a balance in a sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so definitely. I think I definitely agree that balanced committee makes a lot of sense. And also, I do like the idea of having expanding the fields a little bit. Don't keep hear what other people from a little bit diverse backgrounds and research expertise have to say about your research. That's really helpful. And it seems always the key is balance. So this was on that note. Yeah, I think this is we're nearing the end of our episode. I really appreciate your feedback. I think it was really interesting conversation and on very important topics that we all face. So I would like to end by thanking both of you for joining in this month's episode. And yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate your feedback.
Thank you for inviting.
Of course.
It's really nice conversation. Thank you.
Lovely.
thank you.
Bye.